We're talking Weatherby Mark V backcountry titanium guns, extra light hunting rifles with Luke Thorkildsen of Weatherby on this Gun Talk Hunt. Welcome into Gun Talk Hunt. Today we've got a special guest. He's my Argentinian travel buddy and one heck of a dude. Luke Thorkildsen from Weatherby, and he's rolling around the state of Texas right now. But before we get into that, this Gun Talk Hunt is brought to you by Pyramyd Air, your number one resource for everything air gun. Luke, welcome in, man.
What's going on, KJ?
Not much. So you're rolling around selling these beautiful Weatherby guns, and I kind of wanted to touch today about a movement towards lighter weight hunting rifles.
You bet.
Are you okay with that? You guys,
that's one of my favorite things to talk about.
You guys, no, okay. Now I will say that Luke, as good, he is a great hunter. But I will say this much: the Weatherby 18i Deluxe that he was shooting in Argentina for doves. What was that? Almost 2 years ago. I don't think you missed a bird.
I missed we both probably missed a few birds, but I was pretty happy with my overall shot percentage in Argentina. I feel like my bird boy probably pistol whipped you guys, but still, it was all good.
I think I heard a few more clicks in there. When they do the counter. But no, Luke, real quick, just give us a little bit of your background and who you are, where you came from, and what the heck are you doing in Wyoming?
I've yet to figure out what I'm doing in Wyoming, but I'm originally from Denton, Texas, and like you said before, I'm actually making some sales calls this week down here in North Texas and just visiting some of our dealers, trying to get a pulse of the market. The market's been so crazy. And I've been very blessed to be in the outdoor industry now for quite a while. I started at Coleman, the outdoor company. I went to Bear Archery, to Walther Arms, and now I'm in the great state of Wyoming at Weatherby, and I head up sales, marketing, and product development there. And man, I just got to pinch myself all the time. Like, it's hard to believe I get to do some of the stuff I get to do for work.
It is, and Argentina was one of those trips that we had a great time on. But with Weatherby, what I've noticed is Weatherby's always been a leader in development of hunting rifles, functional rifles. And there's just been this massive movement towards lightweight, weight savings guns in the hunting market. Yeah. Talk a little bit about that and what's the mindset of that? I mean, are you guys taking that from a certain sector of the hunting market? Because I've got my thoughts on it, and we'll kind of get into those, good, bad, or indifferent. But just give us a little insight on the development process of a lot of your Mark Vs.
Yeah, I think for a little more context too, when I joined Weatherby, it was early of 2018, and it was a more traditional, what still a lot of people think of Weatherby: wood guns, high gloss. We still do those things, but we were looking at how did Roy start this company? He built it on ballistic superiority, right? And so we've with few exceptions, we got the fastest cartridges per caliber, period. We're doing that game well, but we're not known to be lightweight. And Adam Weatherby is, he's hardcore backcountry hunter. And I think he just kind of was like, there's got to be a better way to do this. Your shoulder's always going to hurt. Is it going to hurt from the one shot, or is it going to hurt from the entire hunt of carrying a heavy rifle? So you can't avoid your shoulder hurting. It's just part of hunting.
Right. Oh, no.
So Adam started off on this, like, we got to be able to cram more velocity, play our game, but do it in a smaller, lighter weight platform. And then in 2019, we launched the backcountry series, both in the steel receiver and the titanium receiver, along with our new cartridge. And that blend is what I think really worked for us. Is we purpose built a cartridge around a rifle, which is not typically what people would do in cartridge development. So we've always had this lightweight 6-lug action that was built like, I don't know, 50 some odd years ago for the Weatherby 240.
Mm-hmm.
A long, skinny case. So we built this 6.5 RPM, long, skinny, basically a 6.5 284 Norma stretch. I guess just a long, skinny. RPM is rebated precision Magnum. The issue with our 6-lug action is that it's got a very skinny throat, so we can't fit a Magnum bolt face. So a lot of people are familiar with the 6.5 PRC. That's just a short, fat, a lot of powder. Powder capacity is about the same as our RPM. We edge it out just a hair.
Okay.
But now we're talking about a 4.9 pound gun that's sending 140 grain AccuBond, like 3,100 feet per second. So we're like Magnum performance on a super lightweight platform. And I think that has resonated, at least for Weatherby customers and for our business. It's done very, very well. To offer something that light with that kind of performance that usually you'd have to have a 12-pound gun to be able to do something like that. I think we opened a can of worms, and it's been a lot of fun.
Well, that's good. So for our listeners out there that may not have a reference, what would you consider like your traditional weight of gun normal? Like, what would be kind of a standard?
Sure.
Let's set a bar.
An average hunting gun without a scope is probably 7.5 pounds.
Man, I would have went a little bit heavier, because I remember, like, if you start talking about your 300 Winchester Magnums and guns like that,
sure.
I think you're creeping in on that 8-pound arena
for sure.
Which now we're getting that. I mean, in a 300 Weatherby, Magnum, you're getting that, and you're half the poundage almost.
Correct. We're fully scoped for less weight than most bear rifles.
Jeez. I mean, that's how far we've come, and I hope the days aren't gone that traditional rifles aren't sexy anymore, because be honest with you, you get the Weatherby line and a lot of other manufacturers, they produce a lot of beautiful guns that are, the traditional wood stocks. I hope those never go away. But I'll tell you what.
No, they won't.
It's dead sexy what you guys are doing right now. Like with the carbon fiber and the titanium actions. I mean, the carbon fiber wrap barrels. I mean, all that packaged into a 4-pound firearm is pretty dang impressive.
I appreciate you saying that. I think if you're listening to this, you're probably saying, "Oh my gosh, that thing is going to kick like a mule." What I think that we've done is maybe different from a lot of our competitors. Is I would challenge that gun kicks less than a lot of guns that are almost twice the weight. And the reason is we have a really good muzzle brake. That's not all of it.
Right.
The majority of it is we have a patented 3D printed recoil pad. We call it the 3D hex recoil pad. And if you take your thumb and you push it into that recoil pad, it doesn't, like the force, the resistance, it doesn't stack up. Like the further you push in a traditional rubber pad, the further in your thumb goes, the more resistance you receive.
Okay.
And what that does is at the shot, the recoil pad's going to absorb a little bit, and then you just feel all of it. All the rest of the recoil just goes straight into your shoulder. Jeez. On our pad, it slowly compresses.
Okay.
And it's the same amount of or maybe even more recoil, but it's divided over more time. So your body, I call it felt recoil. You experience much less felt recoil with that 3D hex pad on a super lightweight gun than you do on an 8-pound gun with a traditional rubber recoil pad.
Well, and if just think about this. And if you're going to really start to think, and mentally, you're starting to think about recoil once you get into your 7mm Weatherby Magnums, your 300 Weatherby Magnums. You start to mentally, you get psyched up. You're like, oh my gosh, that's a big round. But now you start talking about your 240 Weatherby Magnums and your 280 Ackley improves. So you start to think about that. And recoils, let's be honest, like that's not a big deal to think about. But those bigger calibers, man, that's going to make a big difference. And I remember you showing me these when you first got to Weatherby, and you were kind of new there. But I mean, this was essentially launched when you were right around when you arrived, and it was super impressive to see. And I mean, the layout of the design was great. And you've got now the triggers you guys are putting in them, they're not Weatherby triggers. Is that correct?
On the Mark V, that's correct. We're using the TriggerTech trigger on every Mark V. It doesn't matter which model it is. It comes standard with the TriggerTech trigger now, which is a big upgrade.
Absolutely, 100%. And if you're familiar with TriggerTech, you know that they're in the trigger game, and I mean they make a great trigger.
We started thinking about things of triggers before we did the TriggerTech. It was one of our biggest headaches. If you're building your own trigger group, there's almost more components just in that little trigger than there are in the whole rest of the rifle.
Right.
And so we were thinking, we're not really known for our trigger. We're known for velocity. We're known for quality. We're known for just really good fit and finish. But usually in your top 5 things, when you start listing why I love my Weatherby, the trigger wasn't in one of those things. We're like, well, this is one of our biggest headaches. So we started reaching out to some OEM trigger suppliers, and we're like, if we could get anywhere even close to where our cost was, then we can just get one part and drop it in, and it'd be better than our trigger. That's a huge win. It's a win for us. It's a win for the consumer. It's awesome. So that's been a great move.
That's awesome. So I've got to ask, what hunts have you been on with these guns? I mean, because I'm telling you, cool. Luke. So we are talking to Luke Thorkildsen of Weatherby, and he's about to tell us all the great hunts he's been on and everything like that. So I'm just going to let him take the floor and just dump out there.
It's kind of loaded question. All I do is sit behind a desk and work tirelessly trying to bring cool products to market and market them well.
And some of his spare time.
And sometimes that means you get to go to Alaska on a caribou hunt or a sheep. No, I haven't done sheep yet. That's on the bucket list, but we've got some plans, let's say.
Okay.
I did just last year. I was very fortunate. I got to shoot my first bull elk. I'd been hunting for years, archery, shot a few cows, shot my first bull elk in Wyoming last year. That was awesome. DIY on my own in a blizzard. Had an absolute blast. Called it product testing.
This is the kind of hunts he's taking. These are research trips.
That's exactly right.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, if you don't follow Luke Thorkildsen on his Instagram page, it's a great page. Like, I mean, he documents his hunts, and it's kind of a first person view of, like what he's going through. And I remember the hunt you're talking about when you shot your elk. And you hunted hard for that thing.
I did hunt so hard for that guy. And you know what's funny is I ended up shooting him 3 miles from the truck on public land that everybody trash talks.
Oh, really?
So you can't shoot an elk out there. I was like, well, I was watching the weather. I had gone way up in the back country. Again, I was alone, and the weather was coming in. I'm like, oh my gosh, this has been a brutal hunt. Covered a ton of ground, not seeing elk. They weren't where I thought they were going to be. And I was watching the weather, so I was like, I got to pull out of here. I went home, slept in my own bed, and then it's like, it's going to be a snowstorm all day tomorrow. I bet there won't be a lot of people out, and I'm betting that the elk are going to pour out into this prairie at about last light. And it was just one of those perfect storms of when it happened just the way you want it to, where a plan came together, and I'm like, oh my gosh, they're coming out. It's last light. And worked out good. I got to shoot a nice elk, and
but that there's a lot behind that, because when you're hunting these parcels of land that especially people trash talk secretly, they're like, gosh, I hope no one goes out there, because that becomes a little honey hole. Like I've been accused of that before, and I've done it before. Like, oh no, I don't have a lot of luck out there, but you'll see me out there.
But it's awesome.
Yes, but it's awesome. So anytime someone sits there and tells you, for our listeners out there, if you're watching this, if someone says, man, I don't know why you're hunting out there, you might be onto something. Just go with your gut, and that's a lot of what you did, and to do it, man, 3 miles back. What was that pack out like?
It was hard. It was hard, but it was worth it.
Gun Talk Hunt is also sponsored by Timney Triggers. Get ready for hunting season with Remington's 7 Calvin Elite. This trigger is nice. I have a couple of them. No gunsmith is needed, and they're easy to install. The Model 7 Calvin Elite allows you to be more accurate with your rifle and provides a custom fit with adjustable shoes for precision length of pull, cast, and height. Find your next trigger at timneytriggers.com.
Trip of a lifetime last year was Alaska DIY caribou. And a lot of people hear that, and you think you go caribou hunting or you go to Alaska, you pay an outfitter, and you just go and buy an animal. We planned every detail of this trip. It took 6 months getting this thing dialed down, and man, it's inexpensive, and it's also one of the coolest trips I think you can do. It was an absolute blast.
That is on my bucket list, and man, I am going to take the family this year to Alaska. Unfortunately, I'm not doing any hunting, but you better believe my ears are going to be to the ground, and I'm going to be, putting some feelers out and looking at some of the hunting reports while I'm up there. But
there's a lot of videos out there that talk about how to do this. I can give you a very short version. You'll have to still do a lot of your own research, but we flew to Fairbanks.
Right.
We rented a car. You can't just go rent from Avis or Hertz or whatever. You got to rent from, I think it was called 4x4 Alaska.
Okay.
And then we drove up the haul road, literally almost all the way up to Dead Horse.
Oh, wow.
So it's like a 10, 11-hour drive from Fairbanks. And then to hunt with a rifle up there, you've got to be at least 5 miles off of the road. The center line of the haul road, you got to get 5 miles off of that before you can fire a shot. If you're archery hunting, you can shoot like on the road. It's crazy.
No kidding. So I have a question. Would you do it archery next time?
I would. Well,
it saves your legs.
So, it's caribou are crazy. You can't control what they do. You can't call them in. They just continually are moving. So our original plan was to drive up the haul road, and then we were going to hike in. Actually, we were going to pack raft down a big river a little ways, and then walk up the kind of the high water line of a little river, because walking through the tundra is brutal.
Yeah. And to walk 5 miles out? No, not over tundra.
Well, that was the plan. We went to a Sportsman's Warehouse there in Fairbanks. That store has done really well for Weatherby, and I wanted to talk to the counter guys and say, hey, thanks, what's going on? Well, they're like, what are you guys doing here? Well, we tell them what we're doing some product testing, working. And
work.
They're like, hey, I got a buddy up there that runs an airboat. I bet he'll take you in. And so we're thinking about this and
research.
Okay, we've just planned 6 months. And are we about to change our plans after talking to this guy that works behind the gun counter at Sportsman's Warehouse for 5 minutes? And we're like, heck yes, that's exactly what we're going to do.
Yeah.
So we scored an airboat ride 26 miles upriver.
Gosh.
So we were way past the 5 mile line. And then long story short, we had 3 tags. All 3 of us shot caribou. And then we pack rafted out the 26 miles past muskox, past all kinds of awesome.
Any grizzlies?
We did not see a grizzly. That's
really?
The only thing we didn't see. I was kind of disappointed. I mean, it was good. Like, I didn't really want to see one, but I kind of wanted to see one from a very safe long ways off.
Yeah.
So
as long as it's moving a different way and it's a long ways off, but you had guns to back yourselves up. You're good.
Yeah, we were prepared. But man, the raft trip out of there, it took about 6 hours to go 26 miles. Was just, it was surreal. We've got 3 great caribou lashed to the front of our alpaca pack raft.
Yeah.
And it just was gorgeous. We're like, is this real life? This can't be real.
This is research. This is work. Is this really work? Come on.
It really was. It's a true story.
See, that's something that a lot of folks don't like. do a lot of. And I think fishermen more do this, like for local intel. You go to a local fly shop, or you go to, a local bait shop, and you just, hey, what are they biting on? And then you throw some money their way, you buy some stuff, and you're basically paying for a little like recent knowledge.
For sure.
I mean,
check out
it's
this
the same thing
on this creek. Yeah.
And I mean, when you can score a ride like that,
Alaska,
that's amazing.
So grateful that worked out. Big shout out to Dead Horse Outfitters that they gave us a ride. I mean, they were a top-notch group. But what I can tell you about Alaska that's totally different, if you showed up into our showroom in Sheridan, Wyoming, or into any gun shop there and asked, like, hey, where should I go hunt elk? People are probably going to be like, yeah, really?
Yeah.
Get a map, figure it out. But if in Alaska, it's so vast. I couldn't tell you how many people were just every time we told them what we were in town for, from the guys at the check-in at the hotel, they're like, oh, here's where you ought to go. You got to go here, go up here, talk to Jim Bob, he'll hook you up. And we're like, oh my gosh, everybody was so friendly.
It really is that way. And Alaska is one of those places that I mean, it's on my bucket list for a couple reasons. I've only hunted it once, but it was exactly like that. They were like, oh yeah, you need to talk to, Jim down at Mahay's, guide boat service, and he'll point you in the right direction. It was exactly that. And that's one of the great things. And I think there's a lot of guys that are intimidated by Alaska because it is so vast. Like, how do you find it? But you can plan it out. I mean, you really do. And you have to spend time behind the computer, on the phone, calling the game wardens up there, just checking in with them. But it can be done, and it, like you said, man, it can be done cheap.
Yeah, a caribou tag I think was $650. We have flights, a rental.
Yeah,
that's it. Yeah, you got to eat no matter where you're at. So
yeah, and you know what? The number one thing though that restricts a lot of people, time. It's time. I mean, if it's important to you, you're going to take the time, and if man. That's what I would love, is just to take a couple buddies up there and just enjoy it. I mean, because like you said, man, you'll never get that. You're not going to regret that trip. Not one point.
It is. Yeah. If I died tomorrow or in 50 years and that was still the coolest trip I've ever done, I'll be very happy.
Yeah. Well, and you got it done while you're young, because there's a lot of guys that get to that point where it's like, I don't think I can do it. He's talking about 26 miles that he's having to, potentially, raft down and haul stuff out, haul meat out. Man, there's no time like now. Just do it. Start saving up. And I think that's the big thing.
Yeah.
I do have a question for you, regarding, and we are talking to Luke Thorkildsen of Weatherby on the show, and about lightweight hunting rifles, and how much of a difference that makes on your hunt in weight savings.
Yep.
On your Alaska trip and your Wyoming elk trip, because you shot that elk 3 miles back into the backcountry, how much a difference did it make weight savings wise not to have an extra 3 to 4 pounds with you?
Well, I think I probably made up for that weight with some other gear that made the hunt more comfortable. Honestly,
right.
I think that's what it kind of affords you is, an average guy, 50, 60 pounds on their back is pretty doable. If you can cut off 2 or 3 pounds, go for it. So specifically on the elk hunt, I shed a lot of weight off my rifle, and I packed some puffy down clothes that I normally wouldn't have packed if I was doing that. So that day that I killed an elk, I went in, I got set up, I got my puppies out, I got geared up to sit in what I thought was a good spot for hours. I couldn't have done that without having that gear, because I would have been freezing my butt off.
No kidding. And then, it wouldn't have been the experience that you hoped for. Because
correct.
It's miserable.
Then you're just shivering, and then you're looking through your gun like you can't hold still. And so I was comfortable. So what I think it's either going to save you weight and you just save it, period, or it affords you to bring some gear that maybe makes the whole overall experience a little bit better. And that's personally what I have done.
Yeah.
Is use that, because I'm usually packing in some camera equipment or whatever. So I'm counting ounces as it is. Like, I got to get the lightest pack. I got to get the lightest sleeping bag. And now I use that couple pounds to bring a little bit extra stuff along that I already trimmed out. That I'm like, man, that would have been really nice to have had.
Yep. Now, with weight savings comes cost. And I know a lot of guys are going, well, yeah, but how much is it going to cost? I will tell you this much. I put together a custom rifle from what action I wanted, to the proof research barrel, to a Macmillan A3 Sporter style stock. I'm going to tell you right now, I spent double what this gun is, and it's this gun. I'm talking specifically about the Mark V backcountry TI. My gun weighs almost double, and I thought at the time when I built it, I was like, man, this is lightweight. This is exactly what I wanted. And now it's half the cost.
Yep.
and that's what's beautiful about it if you put it in perspective.
Yeah, that's been one of my favorite things. So the MSRP on that gun is $3,400.
Right.
So you can find them at dealer shows for a little bit less than that. You may find them online. Maybe not in this firearms market, but you can find them. Yeah. Anyway, we've had like one of my favorite experiences at Weatherby so far. We were at Wild Sheep Show. And, this is the perfect sheep gun. It's a great setup. It's 6.5 RPM. It's like tailor-made for that kind of hunting, where you're going tons of vertical ascent, tons of miles, as light as possible. We have some guys come into our booth, and they pick that gun up, and everybody just makes that like, oh my gosh, this thing feels, this is not even real. There's no way this is real life. And then they're like, they expect some like, $10,000 number. And I had this guy come in. I showed him the rifle. We talked about it, and he hands it back to me. He goes, "I'll be right back." He turns around and leaves, and he comes back. And I was like, "Where'd you go? Did you get me a smoothie too? What's going on?" And he goes, "Man, I had just ordered a custom rifle that was twice the money and twice the weight and half the gun. And I went and canceled it and signed me up." And he bought one on the spot. It was
on the spot. I mean, it's as close to custom as you're going to get.
It is. It's essentially a semi-custom. I mean, I think that's kind of the realm that Weatherby and the Mark V has played in for years.
Yep.
But man, I think you get a lot of value, even though it's expensive. But once you start counting ounces, and for people that are like, man, I can't swing that much, we do make the same gun in the steel receiver version. It's about $1,000 less. That one's $2,500 MSRP, and it's basically a half a pound heavier.
Yeah,
and
not much.
You look at bicycles, you look at anything where weight becomes a serious game, and once you get to that level and you start trimming ounces, it gets expensive. Titanium's hard to machine, it's hard to make, but the steel version is also very light. It's still lighter than most any other gun out there.
Yeah, it's impressive stuff, man. I mean, this is the wave that we're in, and I think we all should jump on it because it's here to stay, and I do not wish those traditional woodstock beautiful guns to go anywhere. They definitely hold a place in my heart. But Luke, man, I really do appreciate you jumping on real quick, and we've got to actually, man, come dove season, we're going to have to relive some stories from Argentina.
No doubt. No doubt. I hope we share the field again soon.
Oh, we will. We will. Absolutely. Maybe on another hunt. We'll
That's what I'm talking about. That's while we're working.
Let's do that. We're going to work. We're going to figure something out, and we're going to figure out a do-it-yourself hunt, because I know that's what we both love. That's what we're passionate about, and we'll figure out some way to get in the field.
I love it.
All right, brother. Well, I appreciate it, and thank you so much for your time. Anyway, that is it for this Gun Talk Hunt. Thank you guys so much for joining in. As always, keep those muzzles pointed in a safe direction and always be on the hunt.